Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever encountered a people with their own distinct language, their own unique music, their ancestral mountains, and a shared memory stretching back millennia?
But who, surprisingly, don't have their own country on any official map?
Exactly. It's quite a paradox, isn't it?
Well, it really is. And it perfectly describes the Kurdish people. They are, in fact, one of the largest stateless nations in the world today.
One of the largest. Wow. How many are we talking about?
We're looking at a population somewhere between 30 and 40 million individuals. It's a huge number.
30 to 40 million. That's staggering. And where are they primarily located?
Well, they're spread across a vast geographical area. You'll find significant populations in Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria.
So sort of clustered in that region.
Right, that's their traditional heartland. But beyond that, you'll find a massive diaspora, huge communities in Europe, especially Germany and Sweden, and also in Central Asia. Yeah. They've carried their heritage with them wherever history has pushed them.
And they have a name for this heartland, don't they?
They do. They call it Kurdistan, literally the land of the Kurds.
Kurdistan. But like you said, if you pull out a map from the United Nations or search global tables...
You won't find it. No country by that name. There's no official Kurdish flag recognized at the UN, for instance.
So it exists as, what, an idea, a feeling.
Exactly. It's a name, a vibrant idea, a deeply felt identity that crosses every single one of those imposed borders and, quite remarkably, absolutely refuses to die.
It's not just something locked away in history books, then.
Oh, not at all. Their story is a living narrative. It's constantly unfolding. You hear it whispered in ancient villages, some in these powerful, sometimes really sorrowful melodies, and shouted with, fierce defiance by those forced into exile.
They've been called lots of things over time, haven't they? Mountain people.
Mountain people, border people, sometimes tragically forgotten people. But as we'll explore today, they are very much not forgotten.
Not in their own hearts, certainly.
Not in their hearts. And definitely not in the vibrant rhythm of their powerful songs and culture.
So, geographically, this Kurdistan, it's not like a neat square on the map.
No, not at all. Picture a rugged belt of mountains. Think Zagros, Taurus Mountains, and fertile plains.
Okay.
It sweeps from southeastern Turkey, stretches down into northern Syria, moves west into Iran, and then across northern Iraq.
But no hard lines.
No official lines you can point to on a standard political map. The borders are more, emotional ones. They're drawn by a shared language, by centuries of collective struggle, and by these deep, indelible connections of a shared soul.
And that shared soul travels.
It absolutely does. It extends globally. Today, you'll find incredibly strong Kurdish communities thriving in places like Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan.
And Western Europe, you mentioned.
Definitely. Germany and Sweden have particularly large and active communities. But this spread, this diaspora, it wasn't a matter of choice for most people.
No, it usually isn't in these situations.
It was driven by the relentless push of history. A history where, almost every single generation of Kurds has faced immense trials. We're talking war, profound betrayal, systematic denial of their very identity, and forced displacement. It's a heavy history.
So let's get to the core question then. Who are they really? If you ask someone, are they Arabs, Persians, Turks?
The answer consistently is no. The Kurds are distinct. They are unequivocally their own people.
Their identity isn't just a recent thing.
Not even close. It's rooted in something far older, far more enduring than modern political boundaries. It's in a language that actually predates many of the current borders that now divide them.
Wow.
It's in a culture as vast and resilient as their ancient mountains, and it's a collective identity that's been meticulously stitched together through countless centuries of, frankly, unwavering resistance against assimilation or erasure.
Are there theories about their origins, like how far back this identity goes?
Yeah, there are several. Some theories trace their roots back maybe 2,700 years. They suggest Kurds might be descendants of the Medes.
The Medes. They were an ancient Indo-Iranian people, right? In the Zagros region.
Exactly. Held significant sway around the 7th century BCE. Other historical accounts point towards the Cordovan Empire.
Cordovan.
Yeah, a smaller, ancient Kurdish kingdom that existed, kind of nestled under the influence of the Roman Empire.
So ancient roots are definitely there.
Undeniably. But what truly resonates, I think, what really matters for understanding the Kurdish spirit today is this fundamental truth. The Kurdish identity isn't some recent invention. It's not a political construct somebody dreamed up.
It's real.
It's absolutely real. It's a genuine inheritance. A precious legacy passed down lovingly, from grandfather to granddaughter, from the rhythm of an ancient folk song whispered by a campfire to the warmth of a family hearth, generation after generation.
I heard a description once really stuck with me. The Kurds are a people who remember what the world tries to forget.
That's beautiful and so true. It speaks volumes about their incredible resilience, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because even when the world actively denied them a physical country, a spot on the map, they found a way to carry their homeland within themselves.
How do you mean?
You see it in the unique inflections of their language, the specific ways they speak. You see it in the distinctive steps of their traditional dances. And you see it in the fierce, almost sacred way they hold on to every memory, every story, like it's oxygen, essential for survival.
It's incredible resilience when you think about it. They've watched empires rise from nothing and crumble back into dust.
So many powerful forces have come and gone throughout their history. But Kurdistan, that idea, that identity, it persists.
It lives on.
It lives on in every lullaby sung softly to a child at night, in the hopeful glint you sometimes catch in an exile's eyes, and in the protective embrace of every towering mountain that has sheltered their ancient songs for millennia.
So our mission today, for you listening,
Yeah, we invite you to embark on this profound journey with us. This isn't just going to be a deep dive into historical facts and timelines, though those are important, of course.
right, it's more an exploration through the very soul of a people.
A people who, despite facing just unimaginable adversity, never, ever gave up on the fundamental idea of home. Not even when the world, with a stroke of a pen, literally erased it from the map.
So let's walk with them now. Through the deep valleys of their collective memory, over the towering peaks of their resistance.
And into the quiet and powerful strength of a nation that somehow endures without official borders.
This isn't just history we're talking about.
No, this is the enduring heartbeat of Kurdistan.
History, it can be a strange thing. Sometimes it grants a people sovereignty, recognition.
And other times, tragically, it strips them bare, takes away their name, their place.
For the Kurdish people, history seems to have been both things. A cherished home, but also an agonizing exile.
Their narrative stretches back thousands of years. It's deeply rooted in those majestic Zagros mountains we mentioned, and it extends across the fertile plains of Mesopotamia, ancient lands.
And some historians really link them to the Medes, right? That ancient empire from the 7th century BCE.
Yeah, a significant power whose influence touched parts of modern-day Iran, Turkey, Iraq. It's a strong connection.
And the Korduan kingdom, too.
Right, that smaller but fiercely proud Kurdish land that sort of navigated the space between the Roman and Persian empires, a testament to their early self-governance in a way.
So over the centuries, empires came and went. Arab, Persian, Mongol, Ottoman.
A constant flux. And through all of this, Kurdistan never quite solidified into a single, unified state like, say, France or England did.
Instead, it was more like patches.
Exactly. It evolved into this complex patchwork of semi-autonomous emirates. Think of regions like Botan, Ardalan, Badanan. Each had its own local princes, its own traditions, all operating under the larger umbrella of these big empires.
And they played a role for those empires.
A crucial one. These emirates often acted as vital mountain guardians. They were essentially a buffer zone between rival empires like the Ottomans and Persians. And that role gave them a certain unique, if precarious, autonomy.
That's really interesting. So for quite a long time, this kind of arrangement actually worked, more or less.
It did, like a sort of unspoken agreement. The Ottoman sultans, the Persian shahs, they mostly let the Kurdish rulers keep control of their lands, as long as they showed loyalty and paid their tributes.
But things changed.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
In the 19th century, the tide turned. The Ottoman Empire started to weaken internally. At the same time, the Persian Empire began tightening its grip on its outer
And in
reaches.
the Kurdish Emirates.
One by one, they were dissolved. Centralized control was imposed. This really marked the first significant loss of Kurdish self-rule in its traditional forms. A major shift.
Then came the catastrophe of World War I.
A global conflict that reshaped the world. And paradoxically, amidst all that devastation, it offered a faint flicker of hope for the Kurds.
How so?
In 1920, the Treaty of Sèvres was signed by the Allied powers and the defeated Ottoman Empire.
Oh.
And on paper, this international agreement promised the Kurdish people something they had never truly possessed before: their very own independent state.
Wow. Imagine that moment.
Can you just picture the profound joy, the cautious but deeply held dreams that must have surged through Kurdish communities? After centuries under other flags, the name Kurdistan could finally be etched onto the world map, a sovereign nation.
A tangible promise.
The promise of self-determination, right there in writing.
But it didn't last.
Tragically, no. That fragile promise was brutally shattered, broken before the ink on the treaty could even properly dry.
How? What happened?
Just 3 years later, in 1923, the Treaty of Sèvres was completely thrown out and replaced by the Treaty of Lausanne. This treaty solidified the borders of modern Turkey and, well,
In Kurdistan.
with a devastating stroke of a pen, with barely a whisper of protest from the international community, Kurdistan simply disappeared from the geopolitical landscape. Gone.
Disappeared? What do you mean?
The land that had been promised to them, their ancestral homeland, was unceremoniously carved up, parceled out between what would become modern Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria.
New borders drawn right through their lands.
Exactly. Lines drawn on a map in Europe that completely disregarded the people living there, the Kurdish people. There was no referendum. They had no voice in the process. Absolutely no choice in their own fate.
And that was the start of a new reality for them.
A new and incredibly painful century began right then. A century defined by being a distinct minority everywhere they lived, yet the clear majority nowhere on Earth.
So how did that betrayal, that erasure from the map, translate into their actual lives? Was it immediate?
Oh, it was immediate and harsh. This new reality brought swift and severe consequences. In the new Republic of Turkey, for example, the Kurdish language was outright banned from public life. Any expression of Kurdish identity was suppressed.
Banned. You couldn't speak Kurdish.
Not officially, not in schools, not in government offices. They promoted this idea of mountain Turks to deny a separate Kurdish identity. In Iraq, Kurds faced devastating Arabization campaigns designed to forcibly change the demographics of Kurdish areas.
And Iran.
In Iran, any move towards autonomy after the fall of the Shah was brutally crushed by the new Islamic Republic. And in Syria, in a particularly cruel move in 1962, thousands upon thousands of Kurds were systematically stripped of their citizenship, rendering them stateless within their own ancestral lands, unable to own property, vote, or sometimes even get basic services.
And when they resisted this, when they pushed back,
Heartbreakingly, when they bravely rose up against this systematic oppression, the international community, by and large, just looked the other way. Or worse, sometimes supported the regime suppressing them.
we hear about terrible events.
Yeah.
The Zilan massacre in 1930.
Thousands perished there. And the Dersim genocide in 1937-38 in Turkey, where entire Kurdish Alevi communities were targeted and wiped out. These weren't isolated incidents.
No, they sound like deliberate policies.
They absolutely were. And the horrors didn't stop there. Decades later, you have the Halabja genocide in 1988 in Iraq.
Saddam Hussein,
Yeah.
chemical weapons.
Yes. His forces unleashed chemical weapons on Kurdish civilians in the town of Halabja. 5,000 people died in a single day, just like that. Thousands more suffered horrific burns, blindness, chronic illnesses for the rest of their lives. Families just gone.
It's hard to even comprehend that level of brutality.
It is. And what makes these events more than just distant history for Kurds is how this collective memory of loss actively shapes their identity and their resistance today. These aren't just dates in books.
No, they're open wounds.
Open, agonizing wounds in their collective memory. Stark reminders of loss, of trauma, but somehow also sources of resilience.
Because through all of that, their identity persisted.
Amazingly, yes. Through all this suffering, even with new borders ruthlessly cutting their ancient lands apart, even with villages burned, families scattered, the Kurdish people never, not once, stopped calling themselves Kurdish. Their sense of self remained unyielding.
Because identity isn't made of maps, is it?
Not fundamentally. It's woven from the threads of language, from the rich tapestry of shared stories passed down, and from that unwavering belief, that hope, that one day, somehow, the promise of self-determination, of dignity, will finally be kept. It's a profound resilience born from that very struggle.
So, if a physical homeland, a place on the map, can be taken away, what's left? What truly endures for a people like the Kurds?
For them, the profound and enduring answer has always been our language.
Their language.
Yes, it becomes their portable homeland. A sanctuary that no external power, no border, no decree can truly confiscate. It's an incredible story of survival through speech itself.
And the Kurdish language isn't just one single thing, right? You mentioned different dialects.
Exactly. It's far from uniform. Imagine it less like a straight highway and more like a winding river with countless branches. Each branch flows through distinct valleys, around different mountains, shaped and molded by time and geography.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. Take Kurmanji. That's the most widely spoken dialect, primarily heard in the northern regions across Turkey, Syria, and even into Armenia. It's often described as sounding clear, bright, and it carries these beautiful echoes of Old Persian.
Okay, Kurmanji in the north. What else?
Then there's Sorani. You'll hear Sorani in the heart of Iraqi Kurdistan and parts of Iranian Kurdistan. This dialect is known for being smooth, very poetic. It's become the language of choice for many prominent modern Kurdish writers and media outlets.
So Kurmanji and Sorani are the big ones.
They're the two major dialect groups, yes. But let's not forget others like Zazaki and Korani. These are smaller dialects spoken in certain pockets, but they're incredibly important because they carry ancient words, archaic phrases, linguistic treasures you simply won't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
They're like windows into a much older past.
So each dialect is like the different key.
That's a great analogy. Like a different key to the same magnificent treasure chest of Kurdish culture, history, and soul. If you speak one, you'll definitely recognize the melody, the underlying music in another, even if the specific words dance a little differently.
And it's known for being very expressive.
Oh, incredibly so. It's often said that Kurdish is one of the most expressive tongues in the world. A single thought, a subtle feeling, can be painted in a dozen, maybe even a score of different ways, capturing nuances that might get lost in other languages.
Like the "how are you" example.
Exactly. You mentioned that earlier. Apparently you can ask, how are you, in Kurdish in over 40 different ways. 40.
That's amazing. And each way means something slightly different.
Precisely. It isn't just about politeness.
Yeah.
One way might ask about your physical health, another about the state of your spirit, maybe another gently probes the condition of your heart, your emotional well-being. It reflects a culture deeply attuned to human connection.
A language built for mountains and gatherings, you said.
Perfectly put. It's ideal for calling out to a shepherd across a wide valley, for singing a soft lullaby to a child in the quiet of the night, or for reciting epic poems under a vast starlit sky. It has that resonance, that carrying power.
And yet, this expressive language, it hasn't had an easy time.
Far from it. For centuries, Kurdish existed without the privilege of being the official language of any recognized country. And as we discussed, in many regions it was aggressively banned, outright forbidden.
Books burned, songs silenced.
Speakers jailed just for daring to use their mother tongue in public. It faced incredible suppression.
But it survived. How?
It endured in the safest vault known to humankind, the collective memory and the daily practice of its people.
Passed down generation to generation.
Exactly. Mothers diligently taught it to their children in the intimacy of their kitchens, often in secret. Fathers whispered it in hushed bedtime stories. Elders, with all their wisdom, sang it proudly at weddings and funerals and festivals, keeping it alive.
And even in exile.
Even in the vastness of the diaspora, far from the familiar embrace of their mountains, Kurds continue to speak Kurdish. They set up language schools for their children. It's like they're carefully planting seeds in foreign soil.
A profound act of hope.
It really is. Nurturing the belief that one day that language will sprout and grow again, strong and vibrant in its true homeland.
So it's much more than just communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is profoundly a home that you carry within your mouth. It's a flag that you can wave without needing any cloth. It is a border, an invisible boundary of identity that no empire, however powerful, can ever truly draw or erase.
And that's why it survived.
That ultimately is the simple yet incredibly powerful reason why Kurdish has never died. Because for the Kurdish people, to lose their language would be to lose the very essence of themselves. It's fundamental.
If language is the voice, then faith is the heartbeat.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Their spiritual beliefs are indeed their heartbeat. And like a heartbeat, that pulse has many distinct, profound rhythms. It's not monolithic at all.
Not just one religion, then.
No, the Kurds have never been confined to a single faith. Instead, they represent this rich, intricate mosaic of beliefs, a tapestry woven over millennia. Some of these faiths are ancient, truly ancient, while others have been shaped by centuries of history and interaction.
What are the main faiths we see among Kurds today?
Well, the majority of Kurds today are Sunni Muslims, primarily following the Shafi school of Islamic thought.
Shafi. That's one of the four main Sunni schools, right?
Yes, known for its emphasis on scripture, but also allowing for a reasoned interpretation, which perhaps resonated well. Their Islamic faith is deeply woven into daily life. You see it in weddings, funerals, prayers.
But there's more to it than just the formal religion.
Definitely. Even within their Islamic practice, Kurdish traditions often incorporate older, deeply ingrained cultural roots. Think of their renowned hospitality, their vibrant seasonal festivals like Nowruz, their unique music and dance forms. Many of these predate the arrival of Islam, but coexist comfortably alongside it.
Interesting. What other groups are there?
Then you have the Alevis. They represent a mystical branch of Islam, with particularly deep roots in Anatolia and parts of Kurdistan.
How are they different?
Alevis don't typically worship in traditional mosques. Instead, they gather in special houses of worship called Sèvres. And crucially, in the Sèvres, music and poetry aren't just accompaniments. They are integral parts of their spiritual devotion. It emphasizes a very personal, heartfelt journey towards the divine.
And the Yazidis, they have a very unique history.
Extremely unique and often tragically misunderstood. The Yazidis follow an ancient, monotheistic faith that predates both Islam and Christianity.
Centered on the Pitak angel.
Yes, Melik Taus. They worship a supreme god, and Melik Taus is his chief angelic messenger. For centuries, outsiders profoundly misunderstood Yazidism, often mislabeling it as devil worship.
Which led to terrible persecution.
Horrific persecution, sadly, time and time again throughout history, most recently by ISIS. Yet, Yazidis see themselves as solemn keepers of a sacred trust, guardians of the earth, the balance of the seasons, the equilibrium of life itself.
Are there other distinct groups?
You also find the Yarsanis, sometimes called Alevis or Kakayi. Their beliefs are often quite secretive, traditionally shared mainly among initiates.
What are their core beliefs?
Their faith intricately blends elements of Islam with ancient Iranian religions and deep mystical thought. Key tenets revolve around truth, radical equality between people, and cycles of spiritual rebirth. It's about inner transformation.
And even older roots, Zoroastrianism.
Yes. Before Islam, before Christianity spread widely, some historians suggest Zoroastrianism was perhaps the primary religion of the Kurdish ancestors.
The ancient Persian religion of light versus darkness.
Exactly. Worship of Ahura Mazda, the god of light and wisdom, and this idea of the world as a constant struggle between truth and falsehood, good and evil. You can still sometimes feel subtle echoes of these ideas in contemporary Kurdish concepts of justice and morality.
So this incredible diversity, did they manage to live together?
What's truly remarkable, and maybe one of the most compelling aspects of traditional Kurdish society, is how these diverse faiths often did live harmoniously, side by side, in many parts of Kurdistan.
Like literally neighbors.
Yes. You could find a Yazidi village nestled right beside a Muslim one, and a Alevi family doing business seamlessly with a Sunni neighbor. Markets would buzz with activity, holy days of different faiths might overlap, and this rich diversity was just, well, normal, an accepted part of daily life.
But history wasn't always peaceful, you acknowledged?
No, absolutely not. We have to be realistic. There have certainly been tensions, particularly when outside political forces or opportunistic religious leaders tried to exploit these differences to divide people for their own gain. That definitely happened.
But the memory of coexistence is still strong.
Very strong. That ability to live together peacefully despite differences lives vividly in the Kurdish imagination. It stands as compelling proof that a nation, a people, can embody many different identities and beliefs at once, without losing its core unity or shared culture.
Maybe that's the real lesson here.
Perhaps it is. That belief doesn't have to be uniform to be shared or respected. That you can worship in different ways, follow different spiritual paths, but still join hands and dance in the same joyful circle of the Newruz fire, united by a common humanity and heritage.
So for Kurds, faith isn't just about the afterlife.
It seems to be fundamentally about the dignity of living this life. Living it with honor, with strong community bonds, and with unwavering courage, especially when facing adversity.
And maybe that diversity survived because it wasn't forced.
That could be a huge part of it. It seems rooted not in fear or rigid dogma imposed from above, but in a fundamental, inherent human freedom to choose one's own spiritual path, to find meaning in one's own way.
Okay, let's talk about culture. If you were to step into a Kurdish town during a festival.
Oh, you wouldn't just see the culture. You would feel it vibrating through your very bones. It's a full sensory immersion.
What's the first thing you'd notice?
The colors. Absolutely stunning. Women wear these flowing, intricately embroidered dresses that shimmer like gemstones, deep reds, lush greens, brilliant blues, radiant golds, and often each color, each pattern, tells a story about the specific region the wearer comes from.
And the men.
Men traditionally wear shayushapik, these loose, comfortable trousers, cinched at the waist with a wide cloth belt, often paired with a patterned scarf wrapped elegantly around their head.
It's more than just clothing, isn't it?
Much more. Even in the way they dress, Kurds carry both the weight of their history and this immense sense of pride. Traditional clothing isn't just nostalgia or a costume for special days. It's a powerful statement. It's a vibrant declaration that says, we are still here, we endure.
And then the sounds.
Yes. From those vibrant colors, you'd be drawn by the equally vibrant sounds. The steady, rhythmic pulse of the daf drum, for instance.
The daf, a large frame drum.
Exactly. Its beat isn't just music. It's the very heartbeat of the gathering, often intertwined with the soulful, almost haunting cry of the zurna flute.
A double reed instrument, right. Very distinctive sound.
Very distinctive, very powerful. These aren't just background noises. They are the energy, the emotion that guides the entire celebration.
I can almost hear it. And dancing is huge, especially at weddings.
Oh, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
The irresistible music calls everyone to the dance floor, or more accurately, the dance circle. This is the governed.
Governed. How does it work?
People join hands, forming a long flowing line, or sometimes a curving arc. They step in perfect rhythm together, shoulders swaying, feet tapping with this infectious energy. It's a dance that beautifully connects generations, grandparents, parents, children, all moving together, bound by the same ancient, joyful beat.
It sounds incredibly communal.
It is. And food, too, is a festival in itself in Kurdish culture. The aromas. The smell of fresh naan bread pulled warm and fragrant from a traditional clay oven just fills the air.
Naan bread.
You'd taste the comforting warmth of dolma, those grape leaves meticulously stuffed with the rice and aromatic herbs, and savor the rich, smoky flavors of kebab, grilled expertly over an open fire.
And sharing is key.
Always. Meals are almost always shared from large platters, generously laden with food, because the absolute essence of Kurdish hospitality dictates that no one, absolutely no one, eats alone. It's a core value. Sharing is fundamental.
And the biggest festival, Newruz.
Yes. If you are lucky enough to visit in spring, Around the vernal equinox, you will witness their most significant and emotionally charged celebration, Newroz.
It's the Kurdish New Year.
It is. But it's far more than just a calendar date. It is a profound celebration of freedom, renewal, and light. Deeply symbolic.
And the fires.
That's central. Towering bonfires are lit on hilltops everywhere. This tradition honors the ancient, powerful story of Kawa the blacksmith.
Kawa the blacksmith. Who was he?
He's a legendary figure, a folk hero, who bravely defeated a cruel, tyrannical ruler named Zahak. And in doing so, Kawa brought the warmth and renewal of spring back to the land, ending a long winter of oppression.
So the fires symbolize that victory.
Exactly. Victory over darkness, the return of light and freedom. On Newroz night, it's truly a breathtaking spectacle. The flames dance vibrantly against the darkening mountain sky.
And the people dance too.
And so do the people, singing ancient folk songs with joyous abandon, holding hands in solidarity and bravely leaping over the bonfires. It's like stepping boldly into a new season of hope, symbolically leaving the hardships of the past behind in the flames.
The mountain seems central to everything.
They are an ever-present, absolutely integral part of Kurdish life. They are the carefree playground for children, the vast pastures for shepherds and their flocks, and crucially, a protective shield in times of danger and conflict.
They shape the people too.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
They impart upon the Kurds this profound, deep sense of belonging and perhaps also nurture their fierce spirit of independence. It's hard to dominate people who know the mountains like the back of their hand.
Which leads to that famous saying.
The Kurds have no friends but the mountains.
Yes.
Yes. It's an old, poignant truth deeply held by many Kurds.
It is meant sadly.
Not necessarily as a sign of sadness or isolation, though it can carry that way. It's often spoken more as a powerful reminder that the land itself, more loyal, more steadfast than any shifting political ally, has always been their greatest, most unwavering partner and protector. It's a statement of resilience and self-reliance.
So Kurdish culture isn't history, it's living.
Absolutely. It is not some dusty museum exhibit, static and preserved behind glass. No way. It is vividly alive, breathing in the bustling markets, simmering in the kitchens, echoing with laughter in wedding tents, and thriving along ancient mountain trails.
And that's why it survived.
Precisely. It has remarkably survived empires, outright bans, and devastating exiles.
Yeah.
Because it is so intrinsically woven into the very fabric of daily life. It's not separate from living, it is living.
And that magic happens when they gather.
That's the incredible thing. Even when Kurds are dispersed across the entire globe, far from their mountains, when they gather together for a wedding, a solemn funeral, or to celebrate around a communal Newroz fire in that moment, Kurdistan exists again. Vibrant, real, tangible, if only for that night.
It's hard to believe seeing all that richness, that expressing it, could be dangerous.
It's a painful paradox. When you witness the stunning colors of their clothing, hear the soulful sounds of their music, observe the sheer joy in their dances, it's genuinely difficult to fathom that such beautiful expressions of human culture could ever be considered a threat.
But they were.
Yet, for much of the past century, and sadly even today in some places, merely wearing those distinctive clothes, speaking that beautiful language, or even playing that deeply emotional music could lead to arrest. Or tragically, something far, far worse. It became an act of defiance just to be Kurdish publicly.
Let's revisit that historical turning point, the broken promise.
Right. The story of modern Kurdish suffering really crystallizes with that profound betrayal after World War I. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 held out this incredible promise of an independent state. Hope.
And then Lausanne in 1923.
Then Lausanne completely erased that promise. Kurdistan was carved up, distributed between Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria. No consultation, no consent.
Making the minorities everywhere.
Suddenly, yes. Minorities in 4 different newly forming or consolidating states, each with its own nationalizing agenda. And in each of these states, they faced unique, yet consistently brutal, struggles simply to exist and maintain their identity.
Let's look at Turkey first. What happened there?
In Turkey, from the 1920s onward under the new republic, the policy was essentially one of forced assimilation and denial. Speaking Kurdish in public was forbidden.
We mentioned the Mountain Turks idea.
Yes, the government actively promoted this narrative that Kurds didn't exist as a distinct people. They were just mountain Turks who had forgotten their Turkishness. It was a complete denial of their identity.
What did that mean in practice?
For decades, it was impossible to publish a book in Kurdish, broadcast a Kurdish song on the radio, or teach the Kurdish language in schools. Even giving your child a traditional Kurdish name was prohibited. Families were forced to adopt Turkish names.
And resistance was met with force.
Overwhelming and brutal force. When Kurds rose up against this suppression in the 1930s, the Turkish army responded with massacres like Zilan in 1930 and Dersim in 1937-38. Thousands were killed, entire communities wiped out. This set a pattern.
And later, the PKK conflict.
Exactly. That conflict escalated dramatically in the 1980s and 1990s with the rise of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, and its guerrilla war against the Turkish state. The state response was devastating. Estimates say over 3,000 Kurdish villages were destroyed or forcibly evacuated, millions were displaced, and thousands subjected to extrajudicial killings or disappearances. A truly dark period.
Now, shifting to Iraq, a different context but similar outcomes.
Different context, yes, under Ba'athist rule, but Kurdish culture was still seen as a threat to Iraqi national unity. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Saddam Hussein's government implemented a systematic policy of Arabization.
Forcibly moving people.
Yes. Forcibly displacing hundreds of thousands of Kurdish families from oil-rich areas like Kirkuk and other strategic locations, and replacing them with Arab families brought in from other parts of Iraq. It fundamentally aimed to alter the demographic map. Millions were affected.
And then came Halabja.
Then came one of the absolute darkest days, the Halabja chemical attack in March 1988. Iraqi forces, under Saddam's direct command, unleashed poison gas on the civilian population of the Kurdish town of Halabja.
5,000 dead instantly.
Instantly. And thousands more suffered unimaginable lifelong injuries. It was part of the broader Anfal campaign.
Anfal?
The Anfal campaign was a systematic genocidal operation across northern Iraq in the late 1980s. It saw the destruction of thousands of Kurdish villages, the rounding up and mass execution of perhaps 100,000 to over 180,000 Kurdish civilians, mostly men and boys. It was a calculated attempt to entirely erase Kurdish life and resistance in rural Iraq. Pure genocide.
Unbelievable. What about Iran? Hopes after the 1979 revolution?
Initially, yes. Following the overthrow of the Shah in 1979, many Iranian Kurds hoped the new Islamic Republic might grant them greater autonomy and cultural rights.
That didn't happen.
Those hopes were very quickly and brutally dashed. Instead of negotiation, the response was swift military crackdowns. Kurdish political parties demanding autonomy were outlawed. Peaceful protests were violently suppressed.
Language restrictions, too.
Yes. The Kurdish language faced severe restrictions in schools and public life. And Kurdish political activists were routinely targeted, facing arbitrary imprisonment, torture, or execution for their beliefs and activities. The repression was, and remains, severe.
And Syria, we mentioned the citizenship stripping in 1962.
Yes, that was a particularly egregious act. Overnight, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, of Syrian Kurds were rendered stateless in their own country.
What did being stateless mean?
It meant they couldn't own land legally, couldn't enroll in universities, couldn't get government jobs, couldn't even travel freely within Syria, let alone internationally. They lost basic rights. Their Kurdish names were often forcibly changed to Arabic ones. On official documents, their ancestral villages were renamed, and even celebrating Kurdish New Rose was strictly forbidden for many years. A systematic erasure of identity.
And these struggles didn't just stay within those borders, they followed the diaspora.
Unfortunately, yes. Even for Kurds living outside their ancestral lands, these tensions and conflicts often follow them. In countries like Germany, for instance, which hosts large Kurdish and Turkic communities, political clashes originating back home sometimes tragically spilled over into street fights and community unrest.
So being Kurdish meant carrying this duality.
Exactly. It often meant carrying both immense pride in a rich, ancient heritage and simultaneously the ever-present danger and awareness that came with simply expressing that identity. A reality that persisted and in some ways still persists no matter where in the world they lived.
And yet, through all of that horror, the identity didn't vanish.
Remarkably, no. When their language was forbidden, it found sanctuary in songs whispered quietly in homes, passed down like precious jewels. When their villages were burned, people meticulously carried the memory of those homes, the layout, the feeling, the community intact within their hearts.
So just living became resistance.
In a very real sense, yes. For the Kurds, simply continuing to speak their language, to proudly wear their traditional clothes, to teach their children the old stories, and to keep dancing their ancestral dances became a profound act of resistance in itself. It was a daily defiant affirmation. We still exist. You haven't beaten us.
Because if they'd stopped,
If they'd ever stopped doing those things, if they'd let their culture fade under pressure, it would have meant that their oppressors had, in the end, truly won. And that was unthinkable.
So the culture is alive today because millions refuse to let it die.
Absolutely. It's alive and vibrant today, precisely because millions of ordinary Kurds, in countless daily acts of defiance, love, and remembrance, refused and continue to refuse to give it up.
What has been the human cost? Can we even quantify it?
Numbers alone, as we know, can never fully capture the weight of a single human life lost or the depth of a collective tragedy. But they can serve as a stark, chilling reminder of the sheer scale of the violence and loss.
Hundreds of thousands.
Yes. Historians and human rights organizations have painstakingly tried to estimate the toll. Over the past century of relentless conflict, brutal suppression, and forced displacement, it's certain that hundreds of thousands of Kurds have tragically lost their lives. The number is absolutely staggering.
From Zilan and Dersim in Turkey
To the Anfal campaign in Halabja in Iraq, and through countless clashes, bombings, executions, and disappearances in Iran and Syria, and the ongoing conflicts, the toll just keeps mounting.
Are there estimates?
Some conservative estimates suggest well over 200,000 Kurds were killed just in the 20th century alone through state-sponsored violence. That doesn't even fully account for ongoing conflicts or related deaths from displacement and hardship. And beyond the deaths, millions more were forcibly uprooted, becoming refugees or internally displaced people.
And each number was a person.
Exactly. It's crucial we remember that. Each of those staggering numbers wasn't just a statistic on a page. Each was a unique face, a distinct voice, a personal story, a family shattered, a life that deserved to grow old in peace, to build, to love, to thrive.
This isn't ancient history for them.
Not at all. This is deeply ingrained family memory. It's the stories passed down from parents and grandparents. And for a significant portion of the Kurdish population today, these events, the displacements, the fear, the loss, are still within living memory. They lived it, or their immediate family did. It shapes their present profoundly.
When people are denied a voice for so long, peaceful paths closed.
Some will inevitably choose to speak with words, louder and more demanding. And others, tragically, may feel they have no choice but to speak with weapons. That's often the grim trajectory of unresolved oppression.
Is that what happened with the PKK?
For many Kurds, particularly those in Turkey during the late 20th century, it certainly seemed that way. Every single peaceful road, every path towards dialogue or even basic cultural rights appeared ruthlessly blocked.
Language banned, culture suppressed.
Peaceful protests met with prison sentences, torture, or often live bullets. It was a climate of profound oppression and, frankly, despair for many.
And the PKK emerged from that.
It was in precisely this climate that the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, was established in 1978. It was led initially by a charismatic, if controversial, figure from southeastern Turkey named Abdullah Ocalan.
What were their initial goals?
The PKK emerged originally as a Marxist-Leninist movement. Its primary stated aim at the time was the creation of a fully independent, unified Kurdish state carved out of parts of Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Syria.
And they took up arms.
Yes. In the 1980s and 1990s, the PKK launched a full-scale, often brutal, guerrilla war against the Turkish army and state apparatus. It was an incredibly bloody and protracted conflict.
The human cost was high on all sides.
Extremely high. Tens of thousands died PKK fighters, Turkish soldiers, and tragically, countless innocent civilians caught in the crossfire were targeted by both sides. As a result, the PKK was, and still is, officially labeled a terrorist organization by Turkey, the United States, and the European Union.
But Ocalan's story took a turn after his capture.
A dramatic turn. In 1999, he was captured in Kenya, brought back to Turkey, and imprisoned on Umral Island, where he remains today in near total isolation. And it was there, in prison, cut off from the world, that his political and social ideas began to undergo a significant transformation.
What caused the shift?
Isolated, he apparently embarked on this intensive program of reading political theory, history, philosophy, ecology. And during this intellectual journey, he encountered the writings of an American social theorist named Murray Bookchin.
Bookchin, what were his ideas?
Bookchin developed ideas around social ecology and libertarian municipalism. He proposed a world where local communities govern themselves directly, democratically, in harmony with nature, emphasizing decentralization, confederation, and radical equality, particularly gender equality.
And this resonated with Ocalan.
Profoundly, it seems. Influenced by Bookchin and others, Ocalan began to publicly abandon the traditional goal of a centralized Kurdish nation-state.
Abandon independence. What was the alternative?
He started championing a new, quite revolutionary concept he termed democratic confederalism.
Democratic confederalism, what does that entail?
It's a vision for a stateless democracy. It proposes a system where local communities, villages, neighborhoods, towns govern themselves directly and autonomously through councils and assemblies. These local units would then confederate upwards, region by region, but without creating a central state apparatus.
So power stays at the local level?
Primarily, yes. It emphasizes direct democracy, grassroots participation, ecological sustainability, and crucially, women's liberation and equality as central pillars. It also explicitly promotes multi-ethnic and multi-religious coexistence within these self-governing structures.
That's a radical departure from the nation-state model.
Absolutely. It's a rejection of nationalism in favor of democratic autonomy and confederation from below.
And this new vision, it spread.
Yes, this new ideology, born from Ocalan's imprisonment, began to inspire Kurdish movements far beyond Turkey's borders, particularly in Syria.
In Rojava.
Exactly. In northern Syria, amidst the chaos and the power vacuum created by the Syrian civil war starting in 2011, Kurdish communities, guided by parties ideologically aligned with Ocalan's ideas, seized the opportunity to establish autonomous regions. This area became collectively known as Rojava, meaning west in Kurdish, referring to western Kurdistan.
And they had to defend it.
Immediately. In Rojava, the YPG, the People's Protection Units, and its incredibly brave all-female branch, the YPJ, Women's Protection Units, gained international fame and respect for their fierce, effective defense of their land against the brutal onslaught of ISIS.
The images of the YPJ fighters were powerful.
Incredibly powerful. Those images of Kurdish women fighters, clad in fatigues, rifles ready, often smiling despite the danger, became potent global symbols. Symbols not just of resistance against a nihilistic death cult, but also of a radical commitment to gender equality and female empowerment in a region where that's often lacking.
But Rojava wasn't just about fighting ISIS, they were building something.
Simultaneously, yes. While fighting for survival, these autonomous regions began the difficult, inspiring task of constructing a new form of governance based on democratic confederalism.
How did that look on the ground?
They established local councils, communes, where Kurds, Arabs, Assyrians, Yazidis, and other ethnic and religious groups could, at least in principle, share power equitably. They opened schools where education was provided in multiple local languages, Kurdish, Arabic, Syriac, reflecting the region's diversity.
And the role of women.
Absolutely central. Women held leadership positions at every level. In fact, they implemented a system of co-presidency for almost all elected or appointed positions, meaning every leadership role had to have two co-chairs, one man and one woman, ensuring an equal say was structurally embedded.
The world took notice of this experiment.
For a significant moment, it really did. What was unfolding in Rojava seemed like an unprecedented experiment in radical democracy and self-rule, a bold endeavor born not just from abstract theory, but forged in the crucible of decades of Kurdish struggle and oppression, adapted to the Syrian context.
But it faces huge challenges, right? It sounds precarious.
Extremely precarious. It's crucial to acknowledge that. Rojava is surrounded by hostile forces. Turkey, the Syrian regime, other militia groups. It faces a crippling economic blockade and isolation. It remains under constant military threat. Its long-term survival is far from guaranteed.
So how sustainable is it?
That is the core question everyone asks. It's fragile. But despite the dangers and uncertainties, for countless Kurds and many others around the world, Rojava represents something profoundly inspiring.
What does it represent?
A dream they've held for generations. A life where you can speak your language freely, dance your dances without fear, practice your culture openly, and crucially, govern your own future directly, all without needing permission from some distant capital city or oppressive state. It's a powerful symbol of possibility, even if its future is uncertain.
So while the PKK's armed struggle continues in some form and remains deeply controversial,
Yes, and that controversy needs to be acknowledged.
Ocalan's ideas, this democratic confederalism, have taken on a life of their own.
They really have. They're inspiring not only other Kurdish communities across the region, but also diverse groups globally, activists, thinkers, communities who are actively searching for new, more just, more democratic, more ecological ways to live together and organize society beyond the confines of the traditional nation-state.
Because the struggle was never just about land.
Exactly. At its heart, the Kurdish struggle, in all its complex forms, has never been solely about gaining a piece of territory defined by lines on a map. It has always been, and continues to be, about fundamental human dignity, about deep self-respect, about cultural survival, and ultimately about the inherent undeniable right of a people to decide their own destiny.
Now, if Rojava represents one kind of experiment, what about Iraqi Kurdistan? You said earlier it's maybe the freest place for Kurds.
Yes, if you were to ask a Kurd today, where in the world can you live most freely as a Kurd? In terms of official recognition, language rights, cultural expression, the answer almost certainly would be Iraqi Kurdistan.
That's the KRI, the Kurdistan region of Iraq.
Correct. Governed by its own entity, the Kurdistan Regional Government, or KRG. It has its own elected parliament, its own security forces, the famous Peshmerga, meaning those who face death.
A powerful name.
Isn't it? And significantly, it flies its own distinct Kurdish flag openly and officially.
How did this autonomy come about? It also has roots in tragedy.
Deeply rooted in tragedy, yes. During the 1980s, as we discussed, Saddam Hussein's regime unleashed the genocidal Anfal campaign against the Kurds. Horrific suffering.
But that led to international intervention.
Eventually, a major turning point came after the 1991 Gulf War, when Saddam crushed a Kurdish uprising. The humanitarian crisis led the U.S. and its allies to impose a no-fly zone over northern Iraq.
Protecting the Kurds from Saddam's air force.
Exactly. This critical protection created a safe haven, allowing the Kurds to establish their own de facto administration, largely free from Baghdad's control throughout the 1990s.
And it became official after 2003.
Yes. Following the U.S.-led invasion and the fall of Saddam Hussein in 2003, Iraq drafted a new constitution in 2005. And this constitution formally recognized the Kurdistan region as an autonomous federal entity within the Iraqi state.
That must have been a monumental moment.
Absolutely monumental. For the very first time in modern history, Kurds had a constitutionally recognized place where their language, their culture, and their flag could exist openly, legally, and with a significant degree of self-governance.
The capital, Erbil or Hewler in Kurdish, sounds fascinating. One of the oldest cities.
It really is. Claimed to be one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth. Its ancient citadel, perched on a massive tell, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and looks down on this vibrant, bustling city that blends ancient markets, historic mosques and churches with gleaming, modern skyscrapers. It's a real mix.
And other cities are thriving too. Sulaymaniyah, Duhok.
Yes, they've also flourished, becoming important cultural and economic hubs. They boast universities teaching in Kurdish, thriving independent media outlets, lively art festivals, publishing houses, all the things that are often severely restricted or forbidden in other parts of Kurdistan are just part of daily, vibrant life there. The contrast is stark.
And economically, there was an oil boom.
For a time, yes. Iraqi Kurdistan sits on significant oil reserves. It enjoyed booming trade, particularly with neighboring Turkey and Iran. Foreign investors poured in, new roads, shopping malls, airports were built. The landscape transformed rapidly.
A taste of the homeland dream.
For many Kurds visiting from Turkey, Syria, or Iran, it really felt like that, like stepping into the homeland they had always imagined, a place where Kurds were in charge, where their culture was celebrated. It was incredibly powerful emotionally.
But it's not a perfect picture. There are challenges.
Oh, definitely not perfect. It's vital to acknowledge the significant challenges. Internally, political rivalry between the two dominant parties, the KDP, Kurdistan Democratic Party, led by the Barzani family, and the PUK, Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, historically associated with the Talabani family, remains a major issue.
They've even fought each other.
Sadly, yes. They fought a damaging civil war in the mid-1990s. While relations are better now, deep mistrust and competition persist. They largely control different geographical areas, KDP and Erbil Duhok, PUK and Sulaymaniyah, and maintain separate Peshmerga units. Issues like corruption, nepotism, and high youth unemployment are also persistent problems.
And external pressures from Baghdad.
Constant tension with the central government in Baghdad over critical issues like oil revenue sharing, control of disputed territories like Kirkuk, and the exact scope of Kurdish autonomy. These disputes frequently flare up.
And security threats.
The region is never entirely insulated. It faced brutal attacks from ISIS, requiring costly military campaigns by the Peshmerga with international support. And it continues to face periodic Turkish and Iranian airstrikes, usually targeting PKK bases in the Qandil Mountains or Iranian Kurdish opposition groups along the border regions. It's a tough neighborhood.
So with all that, is it stable? Is it secure?
It's a testament to Kurdish resilience that it functions as well as it does, given the internal divisions and external pressures. It's definitely fragile in many ways, but despite all these complexities, Iraqi Kurdistan remains the closest thing the Kurdish people currently possess to a state of their own.
A place where Kurdish is the language of government and school.
Exactly. Where new rose fires are lit freely every year without fear, where Kurdish history is taught in schools, where a Kurdish child can grow up seeing their own flag fly and hearing their language all around them.
Living proof against denial.
For a people who have been told repeatedly for generations that Kurdistan does not exist, that it's just a fantasy, this autonomous region stands as undeniable, living proof that it can and does exist. Flawed, perhaps, challenged, definitely, but real and resilient.
Let's shift focus slightly to the role of women. You mentioned their stories aren't always whispers in Kurdistan.
No, definitely not. While in many societies, women's contributions are often downplayed or confined to the private sphere.
In Kurdistan, you hear their stories differently.
You do. There are women whose powerful stories are proclaimed with the confident sound of marching boots, thinking of the Peshmerga or YPJ, resonating right alongside the gentle rustle of traditional festival dresses swaying in the wind. It's this fascinating blend of tradition and fierce modernity.
Traditionally, though, it was a patriarchal society.
Yes. Traditionally, Kurdish society, like many in the region, has been largely patriarchal. Men typically served as heads of households, public figures, while women's roles were often centered on family and home.
But they weren't invisible.
Never truly invisible, no. Even in the most traditional villages, Kurdish women worked tirelessly in the fields alongside men. skillfully managed complex households, sang the soul-stirring songs at weddings and funerals, and played an absolutely vital role as keepers of oral history and tradition.
The memory keepers.
Exactly. In so many families, women were the primary memory keepers, diligently passing down the precious Kurdish language, the ancient folk stories, the cherished family recipes, the comforting lullabies, generation after generation.
Especially when the language was banned.
Critically important, then. When speaking Kurdish was forbidden in public, it was often the mothers who quietly, yet resolutely, ensured their children still learned and spoke it within the safety of their homes. This crucial, often unsung role was fundamental to cultural survival.
That's incredible to think about. And in modern times,
In modern times, Kurdish women have bravely stepped far beyond those traditional confines. They've emerged as respected writers, insightful journalists, compassionate doctors, influential political leaders, successful entrepreneurs.
particularly in Iraqi Kurdistan.
Yes, in the KRI, women hold significant seats in parliament. There's actually a quota system to ensure representation. Important laws have been passed, at least on paper, to protect women against domestic violence and discrimination, though implementation can still be a challenge.
And the YPJ fighters in Syria became global symbols.
Absolutely. That image of the YPJ, the Women's Protection Units in Rojava, truly captivated the world. Women in military fatigues, fighting effectively against ISIS.
More than just soldiers.
They became potent symbols. Symbols of a society actively striving for gender equality, arguing that freedom for the nation must mean freedom for women too. That women's liberation is central to broader liberation.
And that co-chair system in Rojava's governance.
That's another revolutionary aspect. That principle enshrined in Rojava's social contract. Every significant leadership position from local councils up must have two co-chairs, one man, one woman. It structurally guarantees women an equal say in decision-making. Quite radical, especially for the region.
But challenges remain. It's not a feminist utopia.
Oh, absolutely not. We need to be clear about that. Life for Kurdish women isn't free of struggle. In more rural or conservative areas, deep-seated patriarchal attitudes still exist. Serious issues like honor-based violence, forced marriage, limitations on women's freedom of movement or economic independence unfortunately persist.
But there's pushback from within.
Yes, and this is crucial. There is also a remarkably strong and growing movement from within Kurdish society itself, led by women, to actively challenge these harmful traditions. You have vibrant women's organizations, courageous activists, journalists, lawyers, progressive community leaders, tirelessly fighting to change both outdated laws and deeply ingrained patriarchal mentalities.
So the Kurdish woman today is complex.
She embodies this powerful duality. She is often both a steadfast guardian of her rich cultural heritage and an energetic, forward-looking builder of a different future.
You might see her in traditional clothes one day.
Exactly, wearing a vibrant traditional gown at a New Rose celebration. And the very next day, she could be standing confidently, speaking eloquently in a political assembly, or running a modern business.
Or she could be a refugee or a fighter.
She might be nurturing her children in the incredibly challenging environment of a refugee camp, showing immense resilience. Or she could be patrolling a dangerous front line with the Peshmerga forces. Her roles are as diverse, demanding, and complex as the challenges her people face.
But there's a common spirit.
I think so. Wherever she is, whatever role she embodies, she often carries that same fierce, indomitable spirit that has remarkably kept the Kurdish people alive and fighting through centuries of exile, oppression, and war.
So the saying goes.
Many people truly affirm, if you want to understand the profound strength and resilience of the Kurdish nation, look deeply into the eyes of its women. Their gaze, their actions, their endurance, it tells a huge part of the story.
Let's look towards the future now. The Kurdish story is so often told looking back.
Massacres, betrayals, wars. Yes, the past weighs heavily. But it's crucial to remember the Kurds are not just a memory, not just an echo of past suffering.
They're here now, living in the 21st century.
Vibrantly here. facing new contemporary challenges and asking new complex questions about their identity and their future in a rapidly changing world.
The numbers are still huge, over 30 million in the Middle East.
And millions more in the diaspora: Germany, Sweden, UK, US, Canada, Australia, Russia. A truly global nation. Some were born on their ancestral lands, deeply rooted. Others have never physically seen Kurdistan, knowing it only through cherished family stories, music, satellite TV, the internet.
Is there a generation gap in how identity is felt or expressed?
There definitely can be. For many in the older generation, the essence of being Kurdish was fundamentally about survival. Preserving the language against bans, keeping the culture alive against assimilationist pressures, actively resisting erasure, it was often an existential fight.
And for younger Kurds today?
For many young Kurds, especially those growing up in the diaspora, or even in the relatively freer environment of Iraqi Kurdistan, the nature of that fight has subtly shifted. They're navigating a complex, globalized world. Smartphones, social media, international pop culture are parts of their daily lives just like anyone else.
So they might follow European football.
Listen to global music genres where international fashion brands. Sometimes elders worry that the connection to traditional Kurdish culture might be fading amidst these powerful global influences.
But others see it differently.
Others perceive something more nuanced, maybe more encouraging. They see that even if specific traditions evolve or change, maybe the style of wedding music or the clothes worn day to day, the fundamental sense of belonging, the core identity, can steadfastly remain.
You can be both.
Exactly. You can, after all, celebrate Neuros with passionate joy and deep cultural understanding, and simultaneously post TikTok videos about it. You can speak Kurdish fluently and lovingly at home with your family, nurturing that heritage, and then seamlessly switch to English, German, or Arabic for your work or studies. Identity becomes more fluid, layered.
And Western influences are growing. Individualism, gender equality.
Yes, particularly in Iraqi Kurdistan, and certainly within the diaspora, there's a noticeable and growing influence of values often associated with the West, ideas about individual freedom, personal choice, questioning traditional authority, striving for greater gender equality.
As your friend said about religion.
Right, that insightful comment. Half of us don't strictly follow any religion anymore. We follow our own way, and that's because Kurdish culture, deep in our hearts, makes us free to choose. That sentiment captures something important about how culture itself can empower individual choice, not just dictate conformity.
That freedom to choose seems key.
It really does. It's arguably one of the most distinctive and empowering aspects of modern Kurdish life, despite all the external pressures. A young woman in Suleymania, as you said, can wear traditional clothes one day and jeans the next without it being a major issue. A young man can play the ancient saz lute, connecting to deep cultural roots, and later that night DJ'd at a club, embracing contemporary music. It's not necessarily seen as a contradiction, but as part of a complex, evolving identity.
But challenges remain, especially politically. Divisions persist.
Deeply frustratingly so. Kurdish politics remains fractured. In Iraqi Kurdistan, the rivalry between the KDP and PUK still often hinders unified action and effective governance. Their competition can paralyze progress.
And elsewhere.
In Turkey, the legal Kurdish political movement operates under constant immense pressure. Parties representing Kurdish interests are frequently shut down by the courts, their elected mayors removed from office, politicians jailed on often dubious terrorism charges. In Iran and Syria, the Kurdish struggle for basic rights is inextricably tied to the larger, often violent political storms engulfing those countries. Hopes rise and fall with those broader dynamics.
Which brings us back to the big question. Independence. Will there ever be a fully independent Kurdistan?
The perennial question. The one that has echoed, filled with hope and pain, for over a century now.
Iraqi Kurdistan tried with the referendum in 2017.
It did. A bold move. Over 90% of voters overwhelmingly chose independence. A clear mandate from the people living there.
But it was blocked.
swiftly and brutally blocked. Immense pressure came immediately from Baghdad, Ankara, Tehran, all vehemently opposed. And crucially, there was a disheartening lack of international support or recognition for the result. The U.S. and European powers urged them not to go ahead with it. The borders remained unchanged.
So for now, it's still a dream.
For now, sadly, the dream of a fully independent, internationally recognized Kurdish state remains just that, a dream. A powerful, enduring, deeply held aspiration, but not a political reality. Yet it's a dream that still burns fiercely in their songs, their poems, their art, and in the fabric of everyday conversations and hopes.
What about the diaspora? What role do they play?
A hugely vital role. For many Kurds living abroad, paradoxically, their sense of Kurdish identity can feel even stronger, more consciously cultivated than it might back home where it's taken for granted.
How do they contribute?
In cities across Europe, North America, Australia, Kurds have established vibrant cultural centers, dedicated language schools to pass the baton to the next generation, influential political lobbying organizations. They send crucial financial remittances back to families in the homeland. They tirelessly lobby foreign governments to pay attention to the Kurdish cause. They use media and arts to keep the culture alive and evolving internationally.
But they face challenges abroad, too.
Of course. Being Kurdish abroad can also mean grappling with the very same internal political divisions, KDP versus PUK versus PKK sympathizers, etc., that exist back home. They sometimes face hostility or conflict with nationalist groups from the countries they left, like Turkish nationalists in Germany. And there's a constant universal immigrant challenge of raising children who feel connected to their heritage, language, and culture in a dominant foreign environment that pulls them in other directions.
Yet, despite everything, the spirit remains.
It seems remarkably unbroken. Despite all this profound complexity, the centuries of historical trauma, the ongoing political challenges, the internal divisions, the Kurdish spirit, that resilience we talked about, remains astonishingly strong.
They've endured so much.
Empires and dictators, chemical weapons and village burnings, assimilation policies and outright denial. But they are still here, singing, dancing, writing, building, arguing, loving, and persistently striving for a better, more just future.
Maybe the future isn't one single state.
That's a really interesting thought. Perhaps the future of the Kurds won't ultimately be defined by one single flag flying over one single unified piece of land, given the geopolitical realities. Perhaps their future will manifest as something more fluid, more adaptable.
With a network.
Maybe. A resilient network of strong, self-aware communities stretching from the rugged mountains of Qandil and the plains of Rojava to the autonomous region in Iraq, to the bustling streets of Berlin, Stockholm, London, and Toronto. All powerfully united by their shared culture, language, and an indelible collective memory, even if they remain divided by imposed state borders.
Because the identity lives inside.
Exactly. Because at its very core, Kurdish identity has never, ever truly depended on a piece of paper from a government or a line drawn on a map by colonial powers. It has always lived vibrantly and unbreakably in their language and their soulful music, in the protective embrace of their mountains, and in the sacred shared vaults of their collective memory.
And that can't be erased.
And that ultimately is something no border, no empire, no political decree, no force on earth can ever truly erase.
Wow. We have covered so much ground today, walked through thousands of years together.
It feels like it. A profound journey, hasn't it? From those ancient kingdoms nestled in the shadow of the Zagros Mountains.
Right up to the crowded modern streets of Erbil today, to the stark realities of refugee camps, the joy of wedding tents.
And even to those harrowing battlefields where courageous women stood guard against the darkness.
We've seen how the Kurds have been brutally divided by arbitrary borders, how they've been heart-wrenchingly betrayed by international treaties.
Relentlessly silenced by oppressive laws and regimes.
And yet, through it all, we've also witnessed, with undeniable clarity,
that absolutely no power, no empire, no state has been able to truly erase them. They endure.
Because Kurdistan, as you've shown us, is so much more than just a geographical place, a potential spot on a future map.
It truly is. It is that hauntingly beautiful song, sung softly and lovingly in a grandmother's kitchen. It is the rhythmic, pulsating beat of the daft drum at a roaring new rose fire, echoing through the night air. It is the carefree sound of children laughing, their bright voices carried by the wind through the timeless, watchful mountains.
The world might call them stateless.
They might use that label. But when you truly listen, when you try to understand their soul, you realize they have always possessed a state.
A state of mind.
A state of mind, a state of heart, a profound, enduring homeland they carry fiercely, protectively within them wherever they go.
So maybe one day a map will show a country called Kurdistan.
Perhaps, perhaps not. The political future is so uncertain, but the truest maps, the ones that really define belonging and identity, are rarely drawn on paper with ink.
They're drawn in the soul.
They are drawn line by indelible line in the human soul. And there, within that inner, soulful landscape, Kurdistan has never, not for a single moment, disappeared. It has always been there.
So that's saying, the Kurds have no friends but the mountains.
When you next hear that, remember this. Mountains are undeniably strong, majestic, ancient, enduring.
But so are the people.
But so, too, are the resilient, resourceful, courageous people who walk upon them, who find solace and strength in their embrace, who have learned to endure just like them.
And as long as there are Kurds,
As long as their spirit endures, as long as mothers teach their children the language, as long as the songs are sung and the dances danced, there will always be Kurdistan.
it will live in the firelight of New Rose.
In the unwavering courage of the Peshmerga and the YPJ, and in the hopeful, innocent dreams of a child somewhere in the world learning their very first Kurdish words.
Thank you for taking us on this incredible journey. It's been enlightening, moving.
Thank you for exploring it with me. It's a story that deserves to be heard in all its complexity.
This has been the story of the Kurdish people.
A story without an ending, because it is still being written every single day by millions of people carrying that homeland in their hearts.